So coming off back-to-back losses, first time all season, just, what are you hoping to see Sunday response-wise, team coming back home and battling Missouri?
Same thing we've seen when we've had a little, a losing game or a losing effort, bounce back. I do think that's part of the territory when you live in a self-aware world we like to live in. You do form some toughness and some callous and some resilience. So, some of that is a product of two road games is tough, uh, and now you get in Bud Walton. Our kids have done well when that's been the case, when our bounce back has happened here. So you hope you draw on those past. It obviously doesn't guarantee past performance, doesn't guarantee future success, but I do think the bye week was very helpful as well. Much needed recovery for specifically Keats. She was able to practice yesterday without contact. Today she'll practice with contact. If everything goes well there and she adjusts to having the mask on, she should be full go for Sunday. So the time was good. I think it was well spent on and off the court. So I hope we see, a team that has shown that they can learn from wins and losses and bounce back quickly.
I'm curious, what's the balance as a coach? You've been doing this for a while. What's the balance between, placing a priority on saying, hey, Sunday's super important, and then just kind of taking your hands off the wheel and relying on your leaders to pass that message along to the rest of the team?
I think it depends on when that moment occurs in the season. This late in the season, I think you take your hands off the wheel. There's not a lot that's going to change in a short period of time. But I think you do trust them. And, when you're built around that way, I think that's why you get resilience. So I think, we haven't made drastic changes. We have always, every team we've ever had, this time of the year is when you're stripping away, you're not adding. You're honing what has worked, you're honing lineups. It's been hard for us because our lineups have changed so much, but I do think this is the time of the year where you narrow your focus. You try to be good at the things that you've been good at, the things you're capable of good at. You don't try to solve a lot of your issues until the off season at this point. So take your hands off. But our kids are aware. I think 5 years ago we were needed to provide some context and some perspective. I think now my job and our job as coaches is to provide the proper perspective. Because the information's out there. I mean, we have all come to grips in this profession that we wake up with a number beside our name every day. Players, coaches, SIDs, we all live with that. We live with a number and a ranking and a evaluation every single morning. So I think we've all made those adjustments, but I think it's my job now to provide perspective and context. We didn't even play last night as I was able to provide some context to them. Like Vanderbilt went on the road and won at Texas A&M, who were 30 spots ahead of them in the net, and dropped a spot. Now, I don't have a good context for it or a good perspective for it, but it is what it is right now. I mean, none of us really understand on the women's side because of the lack of the formula, knowledge of the formula. We don't know how any of that's working. So our group, and I love it because it's how I would hope that it be. We wake up every single day just trying to do the best we can with what that day presents, the challenges that each day has. We don't get caught up necessarily in what that number is or the perspective of anybody outside of the people that are having to put the work in to do it care. And it's kind of a refreshing place I think for these kids to live. But I think to your point, it'd be dangerous if I walk in there all of a sudden and start saying, you got to win this game for XYZ to happen. I do want to provide, again, context and perspective. One thing I did was, kind of made sure they were very aware that we're going to be playing in the postseason again. We are, to use a term that most of our fans, we're bowl eligible. We're going to be in a postseason tournament for the 6th straight year, which has only happened back when Coach Blair was here, and all those things. So I want them to have perspective. I want them to know that the opportunity is still there to finish. If you've looked at our league standings, it's nuts. Like you could literally finish still anywhere from 4th to last. And I mean, it's crazy. somebody is going to play on Wednesday this year in our league with 5 wins. I don't think, I mean, I'm going to put Kylie in charge of finding that out. Kylie, you're on alert. I don't know that a 5-loss team has ever played on a Wednesday, or a 5-win team's ever played on a Wednesday in the SEC since we've expanded. So I do want them to be aware, but I don't want them to be paralyzed by it, or on the other side, I don't want to be motivated by it. I just want them to be motivated by showing up and doing the best we can with what that day presents and the challenges that each new day does have, because they tend to change daily right now.
And then when you last met, or you're matching up with Missouri for a second time here, and we talked when you were facing Kentucky for a second time, it was off of that LSU loss. And you talked about how it makes it easier, right? Where you don't need to prep matchup specific, right? You know that, you've seen it. Does that help a little bit with wiping Tennessee, where you've experienced Missouri before, you played that team before?
Sure. Yeah. And it started immediately. You could, our group knew what was next. And I think before the wheels touched the ground, we were moved on. So it does help. And obviously Missouri they're just on another level of familiarity, because they've been our double opponent every year since we've been here. And then we've drawn them in the last 2 years, I think, in the SEC tournament as well. So there's no need for us to walk down there and show a bunch of clips of Haley Frank stepping behind ball screens, or curling ball screens, or Mama Dimble. We could literally skip all of our film sessions. We won't. We'll remind them, but it'll be fast. But yes, it helps. And it allows you to spend more time on the court than sitting there watching it on film. So not necessarily amount of time, but quality of time. We'll be very judicious in what we're doing. I do want us to be ready to play, have our legs at 3:00 on Sunday, but the time off plus that, having a common opponent. Now, Missouri had a day off too. So it's not common that both people are coming off bye games. So it's a level playing field for us. Haley Frank has not played the last several games for them. We don't know her availability. That has not become a rule yet, like it is in the Big Ten, where you have to report all that stuff. So we'll prepare for her, but there's a chance she doesn't play. It makes them a different team. I don't know. It makes them hard to guard for us because they get really, really big. But we're gonna have a plan for Haley in the lineup and a plan for Haley out.
And then last thing for me, you talked post game, obviously, about the rebound discrepancy. Now you saw that maybe coming against Tennessee, and you knew, 3-point shooting, if they weren't falling, was gonna potentially hurt you. You knew it'd have to be a big part of the game plan. Were you happy with shot selection there in terms of overall? Do you think that could have been improved, and how do you see that kind of evolving moving forward?
I'm just am gonna judge the first probably 15 to 20 shots that we took. They were all good. They were in rhythm. Maybe one of them we didn't quite have our feet ready. We probably should have passed one and got it back, because we weren't going to have any problems getting that shot. It was going to be open. We just needed to make sure it was maybe one out of our first 15. But then, after we got behind a little bit, the time was starting to get away from us. We had to be a little more aggressive, and we had to maybe take the first one and not work. So, over the course of the game, maybe the quality dipped a little bit. But I'm not going to penalize the kid because of the circumstance that we got ourselves into. Again, I've always tried to judge the quality of our shot as it's leaving their hand, not whether it goes in or not. And also that's based on time and score. If you're down 25 and you've got 8 minutes left, you probably need to take the first one you can get across half court. And as long as it's a shot we've made in practice, Sam and Mac and Talia and Saylor have all made those shots routinely in practice. So try it in the game and try to get us back in it. I've never been one to try to take the air out of the ball and only lose by 15 or only lose by 12 or that's not, I just don't think that's the right way to play this game, regardless of what the net tells you to do. But yeah, I was pleased with them. I think there were a couple that I wish we might have moved and gotten it back because, like I said, maybe our hands and feet were ready. And anybody that's been around me knows I have a pet peeve for anybody that does a pass fake and then comes back and shoots the same shot that was open the first time you had it. That's like one of my pet peeves. We all have them, but and it was because it was one of my high school coaches. Like, if you got the shot, shoot it. If you don't, pass it, but certainly don't pass fake and then come back and shoot the exact same shot you just had. So we had one or two of those, but again, Listen, when you're playing at Tennessee and you're under all those banners and you're playing them in a situation that they were in with their back to the wall, with their schedule coming up. I know we got their best ever. They played the socks off South Carolina last night for a long, long time. And you know, that's, again, people say in this profession, you know, you shouldn't have moral victories, but I say to that, you've never been in this profession. That matters to our kids. They look at it and they go, oh, wow. Tennessee played really good. They look at Florida that, you know, it took Ole Miss into overtime. Not that it means everything, but it also doesn't mean nothing. So I hope all those things combine allow us to have 2 good days of practice and good showing on Sunday for Missouri.